No game over. Intelligent decisions in live ops. So, what's a live op? How important is this for my game to work? Moderated by Oktagon Games, we invited the top Brazilian companies in live ops to talk about the theme. Manifesto Games, Aquiris, and Lumen Games. It's a Portuguese panel, but you will also have simultaneous interpreting into English. I'm going to call folks here. First, I want to invite our moderator, Ronaldo Cruz, CEO and co-founder of Oktagon Games. How you doing? Hey, good. We also have Aline Matoso, head of product for Manifesto Games. Hey, how you doing, folks? All good. Pleasure being here. We also have Nando Guimarães, head of development for Aquiris. Hey, folks, how you doing? All good. And finally, Thiago Melo, CEO for Lumen Games. Hey, good afternoon, folks. All right, so folks, the screen is yours. Thank you. Folks, once again, thank you for being here. It's going to be great talk. We have these experts well introduced. These guys are masters of this subject. We're going to talk about something that's already a trend that's been taking place in the last 10 years. But, you know, what you look at stop grossing of the stores, 3-4 years top grossings, how can they do that? What kind of techniques and concepts do these players, these studios have been managed to keep those games as top grossing games? How can they expand this style of life amongst their players? So this has to do with live ops. I can't say if it's a strategy definition, if it's a concept, if it's a best practice. We're going to discuss this definition with the experts here. We have some sharp folks. Nando Guimarães, head of development, Aquiris, Aline Matoso from Manifesto Games. She ran away from Brazil. We're going to have everybody from different parts of Brazil. Lumen Games, Thiago, and Oktagon from the South Paraná and South. So we're very well represented in terms of geographies. And these guys are sharp. You know, I'm the guy who's like the pirate's parrot, always talking about live ops, you know, come on. So here we go, hit the deck. First thing I decided for us to talk about, no, I'll let you guys speak first, come on. It's nice to get to know a little bit of your background. Going to start with Aline. Please share with us a bit about yourself and your role at Manifesto and what. No spoilers. Leave the definition for later. Just your introduction is good for now. Definition of live ops is going to be controversial. Not controversial, but yeah, that's going to bring a lot of anxiety in. I'm Aline. I work at Manifesto, been working there for 10 years now. And today, my product, especially, I'm head of product of Gepeto. It's an educational platform based, game-based. 80,000 students out of the main educational chains in Brazil focused on bilingual teaching, English teaching. It's a bit of a different product in education. It's a serious game, but it's a platform that's being operated, that's in LiveOps since 2017, different versions. The last one, which is a different product we released in the beginning of the pandemic last year, which is what I'm basically ahead of now. But we have these 80,000 students and they have used the game, the platform. They've been using it for many years throughout their educational lives. So how to keep these folks engaged, that's a challenge. And that's the challenge we're going to talk about today, because even though there are students, educational games, serious games, we have to have that in mind to keep them engaged. Yes, there's no way out of it. Yes, LiveOps takes into that as well. We're going to go deep into that. Tiago, my man, your turn. Hey, folks, I'm Tiago Melo. I'm CEO for Lumen, co-founder of the company. Been working with games since 04, 17 years old, a teenager. So PC games, mobile games that we didn't even have App Store back then. And 5 or 6 years, we've been working with mobile free-to-play, and the LiveOps experience has been strong for us in the last few years. Getting greater engagement from players. The great difference of this type of operation, when you have a game in stores, mobile stores, Nice, Tiago. What state? Where? Sergipe, in the northeast of Brazil. Hot, really, really hot here. Nice, nice. So, Nando Guimarães, general managers of Aquiris, Looney Tunes. I was head of development, so going crazy here. I've been working in the games industry since 05. I lived abroad, came back, and today I'm here with Aquiris for over 2 years in the Looney Tunes project. Excellent team, top notch. World of Mayhem. It's a partnership of Aquiris with Warner Brothers and Scopely, US company. Aquiris is headquartered in Porto Alegre in the south, but with hybrid work spaces. I'm in Blumenau, Santa Catarina state, but shortly we'll go back to being face-to-face. Cool. Yes, Scopely is one of the studios that gets the games to be top grossing for many, many years. They can do a great game. These are good examples. Nice stories. I think I mentioned quickly, I'm one of the founder of Oktagon Games, focused on LiveOps. We offer it as a service, but as any studio focused on free-to-play games.
So, okay, let's dig into the controversy. We have different understandings of what is LiveOps. So let's talk about the concept, the understanding. I think it's very rich. And it's nice for people to understand the big picture of what are LiveOps, what is LiveOps. Tiago, please tell us, what do you understand by LiveOps and how do you apply it in your company? Well, the ops is for operation. When we migrated from the traditional development to start operating games, we started maturing the idea of what is to operate a game. And we realized that the development efforts to operate the game sometimes are bigger than the ones to develop the game per se. So for me, it's everything that comes after the launching. The concept of LiveOps has been changing slightly. What is LiveOps during the development? But for me, it is basically after the development, how do you operate your game? How do you respond to your community's yearnings? How do you engage them, be it creating events, modifying the game to adapt how the players are playing at the moment? So that's it for me, basically. Cool. I like what you said, once the game starts being operated, so if you launched it, it's an operation, and then if you have online players that you have to manage content creation or anything, if it's soft launch or whatever, it is LiveOps, right? Nando has a slightly different concept. Please share with us, Nando. Okay, for me, LiveOps, I always draw this analogy with LiveOps and a fast food 24/7 restaurant. They have to serve everyone, non-stopping requests, orders, and we have the front-end guys that are really serving people, and we have the back-end guys that are cooking the food. And in interim, you have the chef who is developing the menu for next week. And then we have people also advertising, come into my restaurant. So it is a range of services that make LiveOps work, not only development or line of production, not only the daily work of the ones serving the public, is the whole team that has a continuous service mind frame. Very nice. Octopus, we say it's like a casino. People come in and we have to keep them engaged. So it's everything. The slot machines, the hall, the entry area, but then the guy goes to the poker table. I have to work all the concepts to keep them happy. And if they decide to spend money and I can monetize, great. If not, that's fine as well. LiveOps has to take care of everything. Aline. Yeah, since I heard this analogy from Nando, I've reproduced it a couple of times, but I think it's also interesting to understand what LiveOps isn't. Sometimes we run around the scope, we've delivered the MVP, but then you still need to finish the feature scope or you need to finish the basic game loop, etc. That will impact your LiveOps, but you have to understand that LiveOps is the content improvement, the update delivery improvement, much more than a big change in your core gameplay. It's just little tweaks, enhancements, increasing the scope of the game without changing the core gameplay. Let's say your game is focused on social. You've first delivered a standalone MVP just to test the mechanics, and then you had a soft launch. You put it live, and then you're doing the social features. That will impact your LiveOps because if the game is already live, you're already operating it, and you're lacking the feature that is lacking for your core loop, that doesn't go into your LiveOps calendar, your schedule, because that's more about a rhythm, a new content. It can't be too stiff. At every Thursday, we will launch a new feature because that also gets old. But you need continuity. You need new stuff to keep surprising people. But I love the idea that if we have a menu, if we have meals to plan, we still have to keep delivering the current lunches, you know? And it's nothing to do with optimization as well, patching bugs, improving back-end technology. It's all of that is not LiveOps. Your LiveOps team must be focused on keeping the game interesting, but they are not the tech guys. That will be improved. Of course, improvements are important as well, but it's not part of your LiveOps scheme. Everything will impact because it's all about community. But people that will be gathering the feedbacks of, I'm so sorry that I'm just jumping the gun here and I'm talking too much. No, we have some time. Well, I think it's interesting that you pointed out it is not. We mix things. Sometimes we launch new content for gamers to keep interested because they are insatiable. They want new content, but then you do an update and you have a bug. Oh, okay. What am I going to do? I'm going to forward it to the bug patching guys. We here at Octagon, we don't do it. We have one team that deals with everything that comes along, but I think it's interesting to separate things as well. We'll talk about profiles as well for every LiveOps team, but let's just take a step back. Building on what Tiago said, you've been working in games since 2004, you said? Yeah, you're a dinosaur, aren't you? Yeah, but I am too, don't worry. Yeah, so the old days, we used to develop the game and develop it. Yeah, that's precisely what I want to talk about. How did LiveOps come along? Do you think it was like the egg and the chicken dynamic because of the rights and wrongs? It's because of that, or for the, yeah, well, I think that the line is getting blurred and every time more. So LiveOps is coming into development and development is going into LiveOps. Ideally, you'll have one team to operate the game once it's launched, and that team could do anything. Operate if you want, if you have a race game, then you want a new level, then you can, do that and sort out the bugs and everything. So, but it's not always possible. Sometimes you need to keep the developing team working, and then you have the long tail from development. But, well, every day more, both teams are working simultaneously. And this is this blurred line that LiveOps comes from. Okay, and then we talk about decisions. How can we make better decisions? So we have optimization. Is it the LiveOps people that are going to do that? People get angry if the game is slow. So sometimes you do an update and the game gets slow. Sometimes it's just after launch that you realize it. So as Thiago said, you need a planning around what's going to be done. I will divide our talk in topics, okay? But we have loads to talk about. So let's first talk about the profile, because I don't want us to be sidetracked from that. I think it's important for those that are watching us to understand that. I think the majority are people coming into wanting to further engage with the games industry, people in studios that want to better apply this discipline, this concept of LiveOps. So what do you think would be interesting? Say a dev professional, someone that is already in the market, what does that person need to develop to have a nice onboarding in a studio that has LiveOps? Nando. Yes. Just before that, I just want to touch upon the LiveOps is quite big, isn't it? So when we say LiveOps per se, we are talking about a group that will work on serving the people. And that's what I'm going to be talking about now, okay? The person that is taking the orders and delivering the orders. That's what we consider, okay? Because all the other teams, they also work with the continuous delivery, but they are not on the day-to-day receiving the feedback, hearing from the gamers. They get indirect feedback, but guys on the front run are the LiveOps guys, and so we have people that are business analysts. They with a touch of creative. So they understand the metrics of what happened yesterday, the day before that, last week, and they will try to improve, to build upon a new event. With a delivery, for example, Looney Tunes, we have characters that are delivered. So every day we have a new thing, but we have one big character that is delivered per week. So they're constantly analyzing what has happened in the previous week. Also in the previous month, what was the team that we delivered last month? How was the public acceptance? What do we have to improve for the next delivery? So that's the LiveOps team. But now LiveOps is a concept integrated in games as a service. It will come into art programming, which is that framework of continuous delivery that everyone in games as a service needs to have. So when you are building your documentation, you have to understand how your LiveOps team will work in this new future that I am documenting. What are the points that I need to align with the LiveOps team to have a daily, weekly delivery? So it is a way of thinking, but we do have a specific professional that will be like the right hand of the game designer and also of the tech guys that, when you have a bug or something, they will help as well. But these are different things in my point of view. Cool. Aline, when you are choosing a game designer, a programmer, when you're recruiting that professional, is it important for you that that person should understand about LiveOps, or do you take for granted that you have to train them in that regard? Because it's hard. How do you see that in Brazil? We don't expect the person to know about it in Brazil, at least here when we are recruiting. Since our formal education is, well, its update is slower than the markets, then we do not expect one that has no market experience to know the day-to-day, the routine of a LiveOps team. What we expect is a game designer that hates numbers and that sees themselves as a only creative person. But so we want at least a person that, okay, you love that, but do you know about Excel? Do you know about statistics? So someone that is open to data interpretation, that's very important. Another very important thing is to be open to work close to the community. We have, if we think about two types of feedback, quantitative and qualitative, we have a huge amount of events that are being sent to Game Analytics, BigQuery, Google Analytics, and people have to interpret that. People have to also do the customer service, tag far-fetched ideas that the users had, their requests, where are they coming from, trying to amass all that qualitative feedback that we have from the users as well. So these two things are very important for the community manager. And the statistical game designer, so to say, yeah, maybe that's, but it's more about data analysis and data analytics, but at least they have to at least not hate Excel, right? At least, yes. If they know that aside, that would be wonderful.
And how to communicate as well, how to set up a graph for use funnel, these things. We don't expect anyone to come ready, if we're hiring somebody who's going to join the team. We don't expect them to know all of the specifics, but we know, we want them to, when they sit down to work, they're going to work much more with that rather than a prototyping program, or it's the opposite of numbers. Question to Nando and Thiago, a question from those who are watching. How big is a minimum size team for LiveOps? Nando first, and then Thiago maybe. For LiveOps, 3 people you could start. Game designer, an artist, and a coder. It's the foundation of any game development. And obviously, continuous deliveries, a pipeline of continuous deliveries. Obviously, the content would have to be spaced out in time. Looney Tunes, we have deliveries maybe twice a day, different times. When we have issues, we have several deliveries a day. A smaller team won't have that caliber. So it's important to plan for a deliveries maybe once a month, maybe, or even, but it's important to be connected with novelties for the players to enjoy, because the end goal is retention of players, right? I apologize for interrupting you. Yeah, go ahead. No, I'm good. Something real quick before switching it over to Thiago. If you have to choose, have to start with one, I would start with a BI guy. You're gonna see, you're gonna need more people, and this is gonna bring other profiles. But you start with a coder. They might want to develop a new feature. It's not gonna resolve. Come on, the game is good. No, the game is bad. Retention is bad. Players are leaving. Active players are decreasing. The game is gonna die. So you have to react upon one guy, BI or data science guy, who's gonna give you the figures. That's my humble opinion. Thiago, your thing. I would go to an analyst / designer, 30%, 70%. When you start thinking about small teams, 4 or 5 people, I have a very small team of developers. How do I run LiveOps? It's the dev team. It's the coder who's a bit of a designer. The designer is a bit of a data analyst and vice versa. So you have to, you will have to give up a little bit on your area and learn about other areas. What are you doing, and how does this affect the audience? A new feature in the game, how will I develop it? How will I bring a tool so that I can add more levels in the future to the game? So what am I doing, and how will this affect the players? In a small team, everybody needs to be a bit of a data analyst, a bit of designer, and a bit of community management. You have to have your ear on the ground listening to the community. You have to do a bit of everything. Yeah, we can talk about KPIs, a bit of data science, at least the foundation. You need to have the foundation, or else it's, I think, yeah, just to add, it's not a LiveOps team necessarily. It's a LiveOps agenda or calendar. You don't have a team that's dedicated only to that, but you will have to deliver, or else the game will have will be short-lived. You won't be able to monetize it enough. And so the idea is maybe the same team that's running LiveOps. It's the same team that's developing, that's batching, that's delivering the remaining features that were lacking into the core, but they have a LiveOps calendar. They have these obligations of content delivery. In our case, we don't have a LiveOps team. We have a LiveOps calendar, a commitment to periodical content delivery and improvement. That's interesting. Yes, it's essential to have a calendar, an agenda. You have to have something planned, a roadmap, a calendar that has to be put together, thinking ahead, planning. As it was giving the example of a restaurant, you have to plan what you're going to do. What Aline just mentioned, it's very important because it's easy during development. When you launch the game, I want to bring more features. You bring more features and more features, and you forget about the game's operation. And so it's no use just launching a content every 3 months. So every 3 months, completely new players, they're not going to even be the same from before. So even if you have to operate more rather than develop. So this balance in efforts of development and LiveOps, it's essential. And there's no cookie cutter recipe. It's difficult. There's no silver bullet. Yeah, okay. So sometimes studios, outsource studios hire us who run LiveOps as a service. We do a lot of this at Oktagon. So what's the highest value that you deliver to this third party? Lean LiveOps, that's the expression, how to deliver something as optimized as possible. For those who are hiring, the cost is significant. It's important in the equation. So Thiago, what do you think has to be done for an optimized operation? So what is value? What is most important if somebody's hiring you to operate a game, to keep the game running, to extend the game's lifecycle? Something you mentioned, KPIs. Metrics are indicators, what you're delivering for LiveOps. Are you launching events every week? What's the worth? What's it bringing you? How much of a difference is it making in players? How do you segment players? Who's engaging, who's not? How can you engage different segments? You have a large game, different types of games, players games, so for different types of audiences. How sometimes you launch the event, the metrics are not good, but if you cannot analyze it properly, maybe it was good for a specific segment of users, and then you can get those players to play that launch, understanding the KPIs and having your game completely tooled. Now, having the tools for you to analyze and have quick data. You launched an event in 4 or 5 hours, you can start analyzing the first results. You might want to tweak the event. So KPIs is the strongest thing. Yes, the advantages of LiveOps, we got a lot of cool tools to operate and react, with analytics for free. All platforms, you can have free analytics integrated, but you have to have somebody with that profile. So Nando, what do you think? Thiago touched a difficult thing for those who have smaller studios. The tools, the instruments, the infrastructure that's necessary to collect the data. So even being nimble, acting upon them quickly. In game development, we sometimes think only about the game, the art to deliver, but if we can't have a tool to collect data, real data, the game designer even won't have information to know what they have to change. In their humbleness, game designers to change. So despite having different types of KPIs and metrics and tools of data collection, it's always difficult to know what the best one is for the game, or if I have to do something in-house, or that usually comes with a larger team sometimes to set all that up, not just set it up, but analyze it later on. So all the tools, having the instruments, it's important if to knowing how to treat the data. And not just the tooling of collecting data, but the way the game is built to allow for quick response to the data. Because if every time you have to bring new content, you need a team of dev changing features and running a heavier operation, if every content of the game is embedded, you have to update in the store, you have to wait for some time for approval at the store for iOS and Android. So that kind of kills the feasibility of LiveOps. You won't be able to have weekly updates if you have to wait for 3 or 4 days for Apple to approve you. Nimbleness is everything. You have to be agile. Yeah, something important Aline mentioned. What LiveOps aspects do you do in the beginning of the project? So you're going to have a racing game. You want to have a new track. So what do you have to do? You won't be able to operate so way there at the beginning, you have to think about it. How can I add a new track without having a new developer, an artist, just the designers to launch a new level and test it along with the team? So the more effort you put in LiveOps during development, your LiveOps team will have to rely less heavily on the development team later on the road. BI, should it be the first step to define the LiveOps calendar? How do you integrate BI with community management? So my first answer, I believe BI, the guy who's, somebody who analyzes the KPIs. It doesn't have to be majored in business intelligence, but they have to understand what the data means. If you don't have that, you're working in the dark. That's irresponsible. You need somebody to focus the team on what makes sense. And this communication between BI, community management, folks, raise your hand, whoever wants to talk about it. Come on. No one? Nando, you go. BI and community management. So community management and BI, it's almost like flesh and blood, They're community management is listening to Twitter, Discord, Facebook, and community manager will get those vocal players, right? Maybe they're the ones who are those who invest more in the game, but maybe they're more vocal, but they're not bringing the idea of the main people who are investing in the game. So it's important for somebody from BI to understand the vision of community manager, bring data to present the reality to the team. Despite having a minimum percentage of vocal players, but they're whales, as we call, they invest a lot. So it would be worth paying attention to how to solve the pain quickly out of those people. Other times, it's a vocal complaint, but it won't affect retention and gameplay playability. So we're not going to get a team to focus specifically on that. You can take the hit and focus the team on something even better for the future. So it's important for those two people to talk daily, and they should have a weekly meeting to explain everything to the rest of the team. Yes, I see the concepts of LiveOps are always associated to strategy, deciding what's important to be done during things. So not just executing, but who else wants to talk about questions? Or else I'm going to bring another one. All right, here we go. There's a cool question here that's in developing a new game, how will I plan the operation? It has to do with planning calendars, but what's important when I'm thinking about developing a game that will have LiveOps after the release, soft launch or pre-release? What do I have to be focused on? Go ahead, Aline. Nando? No. I wasn't paying the... No, it's a new game, and you have to plan all the stages. I think LiveOps has to be as early as possible. It's the foundation, the game designer. When they set up their project, they have to be thinking about how they're going to structure, not just data collection, but the deliveries of new content. So there's no way to create. They're going to put a ship and not know how to reload it when it's out at sea. They have to have that in mind. So if you're going to run LiveOps, have it from the beginning. Early access data, work on them, and to know the proper KPI of when to release, when not to. A bit of black magic there. Every company has their own idea compared to other similar games to know if it's hot enough to release it. Thiago had asked to answer that question. It's about the question on how to plan a new game with a goal of being operated with LiveOps. It's an interesting question because the answer is in the question. If you started off thinking that it will have LiveOps, that's the proper mindset. But we understand that your budget and your schedule will be heavily affected by the number of tools. If you're going to have 15 levels, you can run in Unity. But if you want to launch a new level every month, you're going to need another tool, maybe a web tool, not in Unity for the guy who operates. So the cost of developing those tools is high, sometimes greater than the game itself, depending on the type of operation you need. So you have to imagine. And there's another interesting question from the audience there. The cadence, the pace of updates, of patches. How often do you want to bring updates to know the type of tool that you need? If you think your game's going to need updates once a month, that's a much lighter level. But if you need to launch events every 3 days, you need for the tools to be up and running perfectly. So you're going to have a developing team, a dev team for your technologies and tools. And then the question from the community. The community is one of the sensors to see if people are engaging in the qualitative information. Quantitative comes from KPIs, engagement. Sometimes you're on a platform that's a bit different. And so having benchmarks, we say, knowing that you have to compare what you have to pursue. There's something about community I think it's important to comment. Community has to be taken with a grain of salt. There are people who are vocal and they don't reflect the behavior, overall behavior. So we've made wrong decisions based on community, and then we went back and saw that based on the BI and the analytics, they were not good. You know, it's just 2% of our community, of the active community, which is a low percentage, that was asking for this feature, this change in balance. So you have to weigh it carefully, what you're delivering. Of course, community management, when it's well done, you deliver, you know, to your community. Yes, we're doing this, but we're also doing that. And so you weigh it to deliver to community, but you have to be careful with that management.
I just want to circle back to try and organize and practice what I would do if I were to launch a new game. Okay, sometimes it's so overwhelming. Okay, you have to send all the events to a tool, and then you have to put all the dashboards. But let's say I'm going to start a new game. So first, do your first user experience funnel and see how far is your user going. And then you can do your soft launch with that. You can start collecting data to understand, for example, if your user drop is 1 week, then most likely your LiveOps cycle will have to be shorter than that. So before your user goes away, they'll have a new thing to engage them. If it is a month for the user drop, then you can have another LiveOps schedule. The other interesting point is how flexible your game is for quick updates. The more tools you put on the hands of the designers, the artists, allowing them to upload, put it on Unity, the asset that will be that week LiveOp to send it for the production. So how many steps they have to take in a 1 week cycle just for uploading that? If for that you need 5 days to put a new build live, then your cycle cannot be 1 week because you won't be able to do it. You won't manage it. So how flexible can we make this game to input new content? How easy it is to do? How long do you take to do it? And what content is it? Is it a new level, a new item, etc.? What is the content? And then you can prep the funnel to be able on the soft launch to collect data and understand what is your retention drop. I think these two things are the important things. Okay, so many things to worry. The choice of tools, many interesting things to be able to keep this constant update on your game. Worrying about stores, Steam, iOS, Google, each one has their own deployment way. And you also have the internal deployment that has to be swift, right? So all of this are interesting concerns, right? That they will help you to have a more effective LiveOps. Another interesting question that we have here. What do you think about the iOS 14 privacy new regulations? How do you think they are impacting on your LiveOps? Okay. Oh, did it make you angry, mad? Yeah, it just drove me crazy. I hate iOS for life. Yeah, we know that they are a bit more demanding, right? And it's justifiable due to their quality. Yeah, but just in general, Geppetto is now web and web mobile. Yeah, that's easier, isn't it? Yeah, so we write everything in HTML5. So now we are 3D. Geppetto is 3D now. Yeah, I'm an old cocos. And then we use web mobile. But obviously, we also suffer pressure to put it on the iOS and Android. And we are trying, but our game can be completely updated without new builds. So they just have to accept it once. But we did do a huge migration especially for that, because we hate having to approve stuff with iOS and Android. I can't even talk specifically about. Yeah, sometimes, we have the onus and the bonus, right? They do give us some tools. Oh, yes, in terms of analytics, absolutely. Yes, early access and beta as well sometimes offer that. Some of them offer that. Thiago, with you. I just, in parentheses, talking about early access that was mentioned. When we are launching a game, especially if it's a beta, you're just, doing some launches to test it, it's important to test your whole LiveOps tooling. So if you do a huge launch event, you'll create asset, you'll have no return. You assure that your whole LiveOps pipeline is working. You will be able to understand during this test, how long does it take you to create a content? How much does it cost? What will be the return? So test your analytics, check if the numbers are right. It's very important to test LiveOps during early access. And it's important for you to have your LiveOps team already ready, right? And usually it is a make it or break it, isn't it? The early access. Yeah, and it's so interesting because you have just a handful of users and you can experiment much more. So you can do a different mechanics, a different contents that you can just try, That's the time to do it, because once you're doing a global launch with thousands, millions of users, then any change is critical. Yeah, some people just ruin a live game because they thought an update would be great, but then you had that network effect. Everybody gets angry and never comes back and just turns their back on it. So it's really important to take advantage of early access. Yeah, and during the soft launch, you have to deal with A/B testing tools. That is of utmost importance. If you don't know what it is, please learn to do it. Let's see if we have time to get to the data science, and it will be interesting to touch upon that. We have so many more questions coming along. Is there any way to work with LiveOps without internal analytics? I don't know if they're asking about the profile or the tool. If it's about the tool, I think that would be not responsible. If it's a profile, as it was said here, it depends if the person can understand it easily. KPIs are important, the benchmark. Do they understand what is a good retention day? Guys, what do you think about it? Yeah, I need to have some training in analytics. But you don't need a formal training per se. You can just, learn on the go. But as I've told you, when we are recruiting, if someone says, I hate numbers, I cannot interpret, I hate Excel, then of course that's a no-go. But, we use game analytics, for example. We have 3 different dashboards. And once you understand what are the events coming along, of course, with the help of the devs that put the events there, and once you assemble the dashboard, and the person that will be monitoring that doesn't really need a math degree, a more heavy data science knowledge. The course that I did, the course that I did on data science did help me to refresh statistical knowledge, but it didn't really help. Data science is the most advanced analytics. Yeah, but it didn't really help me to improve my game, really, And we have very specific data analysis when you're thinking about games. If you just do like a general data science course, maybe that won't be as useful as if you try and find something specific for games. Of course, statistics are useful for everything. I love statistics. But it's not what will decide if you have, the best team having a statistics person there. Well, but you have to measure stuff, right? So if you have no data analyst, then maybe you can do it by yourself, but statistics are quite deceiving. So if you're not careful, then you'll draw the wrong conclusions from the numbers. There's loads of biases. It is difficult. We have done that, interpreted things wrong based on numbers that were facing us, but it happens. Yeah, and there's where you have the A/B test, right? If you have 2 different groups, then you can understand what's right, what's wrong. It's further proof of what you've built on top of data. So the more tools, more processes you apply with BI, A/B tests, data analytics, yes, and more important than data analytics is understanding about biases. How to lie with data. Data deceive you all the time. See, it worked. We improved 50%, but that may mean nothing. So you need to understand the data biases. That's very interesting. One of our games this week, we had a retention that just skyrocketed. And we tried to understand, what did we do? I talked with BI team, they didn't know schedule, didn't know promotion, nobody knew about it. And then I understood it was a Google feature. It was a puzzle feature, puzzle and strategy, so that they came into the game and skyrocketed our retention. And I was, what a bummer, because I thought maybe it was something that we had done. We have 5 minutes, guys. Let's try and talk a little bit. Well, we've talked about many stuff, but maybe a bit more about the future in Brazil. What do you think has to be done for the Brazilian community? When we talk about indie games, free-to-play games that you launch and you have to maintain them, it's a bit different than indie games. But I understand that the public and the industry, the Brazilian devs, they are also biased to developing indie games. It's not bad, but what do you think about profile and future for us to improve our ecosystem? Well, what I think is that we are seeing Netflix starting on a weekly streaming of TV shows, Marvel blockbusters now being streamed every week, a new EP. So I think the trend for each and every content that we consume in entertaining nowadays is that you can't run from it. If before you had this mind frame of building one project and then marketing it, then you're missing out on the opportunity of having more people engaged with the game that can continue. So if you want to just build your indie game and then put it live, rethink it. You have to think, even my small indie game, how can I develop it in such a way that I can run it on LiveOps? I can do some little changes. Okay, if it's a subscription game, an indie game, then people are unsatiable. You cannot give them enough. So you need to think about LiveOps and monetizing in your games, every game. It's what Nando said, isn't it? Be it subscription or ads, everything is important to keep the gamer engaged throughout the game cycle. Looney Tunes has a long run. Thiago also has long runners in their portfolio. So just your final contributions, guys, 1 minute each. Okay, I think that understanding that the game you are launching is not a project, is a service, that is the switch that everyone needs to understand and to do. It's not a CD, you are starting a service providing journey. So platform, people that love platforms will come in, and every week you'll have to launch something new. It's complex, it's not easy. And to bring that into the Brazilian market, it's more difficult because we have small teams of 3-4 people. How are you going to operate a game for 3-4 years? If I do that for 1 year and it does not work. So of course, it is easier to think about just launching many games in a sequence. But if you understand that it's not a product, it's a service, that for me is crucial. Final remarks, Aline. Well, when we are selling a product, we think about what's the price. But when we talk about games and we talk about how much do we earn from each user, it's all about lifetime value, right? LTV. It's the money that you make throughout the game life cycle, and LiveOps is to extend that life cycle. So it is directly linked to how much you make from each user, right? Yeah, without LiveOps, it's very hard to extend the LVT. Such an important LTV, pardon, such an important KPI. We also think about it when we try to do the math of how much I will spend to bring in user and how much the user will generate throughout its life cycle. Yeah, just a tip. If we are thinking about a game with LiveOps, I think about 2 layers. We have the top layer, which is the continuous deliveries, agile or something. So you will be always, delivering maybe a client version on iOS, Google as well. You will have an approval process that will be long to have the benefit. And we have a bottom layer, which is more about back end, more constant deliveries, the events, the unblocks that we put on a more hidden version, and we are just unblocking on that precise data schedule. So it's important to think about these 2 layers. Cool. Guys, thank you so much. We've come to the end of our talk. There's so many topics that would be interesting to debate, but you can find loads of materials online, many tools telling you what you need to worry about, how to plan So thank you, Nando. Thank you, Aline and Tiago. This was such a rich debate. And if we had more time, I think we could be talking about it for 2 hours because you have a lot to contribute from your experience. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Big, for this opportunity to promote our knowledge. And that's it, guys. Keep tuned. We have many panels throughout the day. Thank you, guys. Wow, thank you. Such a rich, important topic. And we can understand how the concept is important because it's such a dense, complex subject and so many different views. And you had to even go back to the concept. What is it? And then talk more about it. Thank you, guys. It was amazing. And that's it. Big is amazing. Another amazing panel. So rich in information, great information. Keep tuned, guys. We go till midnight.
Big Festival 2021, the biggest games festival in Latin America.